I understand it.
Take two, this is Slumber Party.
In Silver Street.
Mr. Billion.
Brian O'Neill.
Get lost tension. So here I am. So that was a bunch of spliced together countdowns, including something that actually cut into some of the, I guess, movie trailers. I don't know who built up this reel, but there it is. I wasn't sure what it is because it wasn't marked, and we've been going through this box of that just says "Identify Me" on them, and that was in there. So, I'm Skip Alzheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show, where we watch old 16mm films, and the temperature has actually climbed to almost 60 degrees, which is radically different than the teens that we had over the weekend. Actually had to turn off the water at the archive because I was afraid the pipes were going to burst. But I think we're back. It's almost t-shirt weather. So that's pretty exciting. Yeah, I got some films. This next one is Clouds. Enjoy.
Clouds are the visible evidence of processes taking place in the air, the garments of the weather, so to speak, which change continually as the weather changes. In fact, the changes of the cloud garments, in many cases, precede and foreshadow changes in the weather. Thus, the cloud is not only one of the most beautiful and inspiring of the manifestations of nature, but it is of practical value as well, for it indicates the probable weather conditions for the immediate future. Indeed, if you know your clouds well enough, you can do a pretty fair job of forecasting for perhaps a day ahead, subject, of course, to upsets due to factors beyond your ken. For ages, farmers, hunters, and mariners have used clouds as weather signs. Changes in weather and in cloud forms are due to the passage of different air masses associated with wind systems called cyclones. This true cyclone, not to be confused with a tornado, is a great counterclockwise wind system 2,000 miles in diameter, moving from west to east about 600 miles a day. The center of this advancing whirl is a point of low barometric pressure between areas of higher pressure or anticyclones. Cold air masses are usually found east, north, and northwest of this center, with a warm sector to the south. Thus we have a warm front with easterly shifting to southerly winds, then a warm sector with southerly winds, followed by a cold front with winds shifting to northerly. Where warm, moist air overrides cold air, there is precipitation, rain or snow. Taking a vertical section through this diagram and changing our viewpoint, we can illustrate the progress of these fronts. Starting at the axis of the anticyclone, where the barometric pressure is high, let us watch for 3 or 4 days while the cyclone passes. Think of the space above this imaginary warm front line as filled with a mass of advancing warm air flowing up over a dome or ridge of heavier cold air. This warm air is moist, and as it is lifted and cools, different cloud forms develop at different altitudes. As the warm front at the Earth's surface approaches, there is rain or snow. This precipitation is generally steady and light to moderate. Fair weather follows as we enter the warm sector. Here, warm air ascends by convection, owing to the heat of the sun, and presently clouds begin to form. As the weather grows warmer, these clouds grow heavier, and as the warm sector passes and the cold front approaches, they become dense and threatening, culminating in heavy rain as the cold front passes. This is the so-called squall line. Then the clouds tend to dissipate as the northwest winds bring in cold descending air. And finally, we are back to where we started, in a high-pressure area. So much for the phases of the typical weather cycle, which is most pronounced in winter, less so in spring and fall, and often interrupted in summer. Now let's study the types of clouds that usually mark the progress of such a cycle. Starting after the passing of a cold front, we have cirrus clouds, sometimes called mare's tails. These wispy clouds of ice particles are the highest of all, floating at an elevation of 25 to 30,000 feet above the earth. The wind is from the northwest, barometer high, temperature cool. Cirrus clouds may be followed by cirrostratus, which may merge into cirrocumulus, sometimes called macro sky. Next, not quite so high, we may have altocumulus clouds. Meanwhile, the wind is northerly, temperature cool, barometer still high. Lower down on the frontal slope, we encounter altostratus clouds, generally with northeast winds, falling barometer, and steady or slowly rising temperature. As the warm front approaches, the wind swings to the east with nimbus clouds and rain or snow. As the warm front passes, the wind veers to a southerly direction. Bear in mind that shifts in wind give a general indication as to what sector of the cyclone we are entering. Then the sky clears, and we have fair and warm weather for perhaps a day, with southwest winds and steady or slowly falling barometer. Scattered cumulus clouds appear at an altitude of 5,000 feet or more, gradually becoming heavier as the temperature rises. As the cold front approaches, the clouds often rise suddenly into threatening thunderheads, mountains of cumulonimbus clouds, towering to a height of possibly 30,000 feet. As the tip of the sloping cold front arrives, nimbus clouds form at the base of the cumulonimbus storm cloud, and heavy showers occur. This is normally a brief but violent rainstorm. While the cold front is passing, the temperature falls abruptly, the wind shifts to the northwest, the barometer rises, and we may have a rainbow. Soon thereafter, the storm clouds give way to fractocumulus clouds that rapidly dissipate. Thus we come back to the sector of fair and cool weather, and the cycle is complete. So much for the practical aspect of clouds, the aspect that outdoor men study daily for indications of the weather. The beauty of the cloud is quite another matter, yet one of prime importance to the human spirit. Indeed, there is no one feature of the average landscape that may add more to its charm and appeal than beautiful clouds. Try to make a worthwhile picture of a flat plain like this without clouds in the sky, and you begin to realize the aesthetic importance of clouds in this world of ours. And even when they are not inherently beautiful, clouds may have much charm and interest. The fog that drifts over the peak of Mount Tamalpais, though merely a gray mist to the observer on the mountain, has an appeal to the lover of nature, an appeal which may be heightened by the knowledge that the altitude of the observer has much to do with the type of cloud as it is revealed to his eyes. Thus, one man's fog may be another man's stratus. From San Francisco, this fog appears as a high stratus cloud encircling the top of a distant mountain. From the slope of Pike's Peak at sunrise, we look out over a sea of fog, stretching level and unbroken to the horizon. If we were in Colorado Springs 2,000 feet below, this fog would be a broken sheet of low stratus clouds, which would soon be dissipated by the heat of the morning sun. As we look at this view of Mount Hood, the cloud we see is a streak of fractocumulus. To the mountain climber, it is a fog. Thus, these fractocumulus clouds about the summit of Mount Shasta, though they look serene enough to us, sweep over the glaciers of that lofty peak as a cold and forbidding mist. From all this, it appears that we might well take our clouds more or less seriously. Though most of us cannot hope to acquire the instinctive weather wisdom of the born hunter or sailor, to whom the sky is an open book, we may at least find pleasure and perhaps some profit in trying to understand those riddles written in vapor that pass overhead. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. And to be able in some measure to interpret that speech is to have a fuller appreciation of the significance and beauty of the cloud, a keener sense of the majesty of the gathering storm, of the splendor of the sunset, of the incalculable variations in color and form that lend meaning and beauty to the magnificent pageantry of the weather cycle.
Awesome. The harp music, man, and then the kind of DIY titles at the beginning, fascinating. This was made by the USDA's Film Bureau, and yeah, from the 30s, just beautiful. I love it. And thinking about strings, I have a film set up on the scanner behind me, which is called String Sounds. Let me change over. String Sounds. Enjoy.
Sound.
Sounds like a sitar.
The tighter you stretch a string, the higher the sound. Short strings also make high sounds. Can you think of a way of making these sounds louder?
Just put it up there. Yeah, I got a better sound. I'm still not that good. How about up here? Let's try it over here. Let's try it away from the wall. Yeah. All right, now. This sounds a little bit dull. And then louder. It's definitely louder.
The sound is louder because the vibration of the strings makes the wall vibrate too.
Put a thing right there, a board there, off. And then you know, and you cut a hole in it, and then you put a back on the back there. You know, and you got something. Yeah.
Strings are usually attached to some kind of a wooden box to make a louder and richer sound. Long strings like these vibrate slowly, making low sounds. Would you know how to get a high sound from this string? Shorten the string and it vibrates faster. While one hand sets the strings in motion, this hand makes the strings shorter. When you want to make strings vibrate for a longer time, you use a bow. Playing on strings loosens them, so that every now and then they have to be tuned or tightened again. A string quartet plays stringed instruments of different sizes. Listen to the difference in the sounds they make. Each country has its own special string sounds. This music from Japan is played on a koto. Listen to the difference between these koto sounds and the sounds of a sitar from India. Each country's instruments have their own special sounds.
Wait a minute. Let me show you the guitar part I worked out for that.
These are the string sounds of American mountain music.
Oh, Billy's in the low there. That's big and good. Let me show the guitar part I worked out for that.
Harry Parch, very much like his compositions and his wacky instruments. So this is what's great about when I have a can that actually has teacher's notes in it. Let me get it real quick. So, in a can, there's sometimes pasted in or taped in. So here's talks about the purpose of it and all this, and then there's suggested activities for the teacher. Make a harp like the one in the film. You can use rubber bands, guitar string, or even heavy fishing lines for string. Use round eye screws to fasten the strings to the top of the harp so you can adjust the pitch. Make a banjo out of a cigar box and stick. Full instructions may be found in some project books in the bibliography below. In addition to plucking it, you may use a piece of doweling to bow it. Make a washtub bass. See bibliography. Play it along with your harp and banjos. Very possibly there are 4 adults in your area who play in a string quartet for their spare time. Invite them to your class to play and show how string instruments work. Perhaps they will let the students play their instruments. There are many reproductions of paintings and prints showing string instruments from ancient times through the present. Make a display of these in your classroom. Have students make reports on different instruments. Listen to recordings such as the Scheherazade, Indian sitar music, flamenco, or Vivaldi violin concerto. Have the class make paintings or drawings of the sound. That is, how the sound makes them feel, what it reminds them of, or what the sound would look like if it were a line on a page instead of vibrating air. So, there you go. Oh, that's weird. It says, deposited by the Department for Ex-Children. So, does that mean that they're teenagers, adults, ex-children? Anywho, let's see, what else we got? Oh, yeah. What time is it? Yeah, we got time for this. This is Cotton at War. Enjoy.
To the men and women of the cotton industry. The products of the cotton industry, the work of your hands, are helping to win the war on every battlefront. They are as necessary to our fighting men as guns and tanks. As the war advances, the armed services must call on you and your industry to set new production records. Your contribution to the national effort has been superb. I know that you will meet and surpass the new demands made upon you by the necessities of war. You will carry your end of the heavy load that we all must share to make sure of victory. Signed, Brand Somerville, Lieutenant General Commanding.
Reinforcements. Without cotton. The men who might not come back. Without cotton.
All right, I see your point. If the Army needs all this cotton, let them have it.
We can't. We're 2 billion yards short this year.
2 billion yards? I can't picture 2 billion. How much is that?
Well, it takes 122 yards of cloth to equip one soldier. We're so short that 16 million men might run around naked.
In the first place, we haven't got 16 million soldiers. And in the second, I haven't seen a single one of them run around naked.
You haven't?
No. Hey, what's this?
An induction station.
Yeah, I remember.
One of last spring's sample orders for the Army included 19 million undershirts, 18 million pairs of socks, 6,200,000 leggings, 14 million handkerchiefs.
All cotton?
You'll get about 40 different items made up. General and special issue.
Nice sleeping bag.
That's made of it, too. From head to toe, from helmet...
Helmets are made of steel. I know. I was an air raid warden.
What's that inside?
Huh? Oh. Well, I suppose it is.
Certainly. Underwear, socks, shoes.
Shoes?
Yes, shoes. Lined with it and stitched. Shirt, pants, belt, leggings, steel jacket, cartridge belt, gas mask, the pack, and most of what's in it.
What, for instance?
A canvas shelter half, spare socks, handkerchiefs, rations.
Food isn't cotton.
Ever heard of cottonseed oil? Here you see what the well-dressed soldier wears all over the globe.
Cotton, cotton, cotton. I'm getting dizzy.
All right, lie down and go to sleep.
I will.
Under cotton sheets.
Attention! Where am I? What is all this?
About face! To the rear, face! To the left flank, face! The right flank, face!
I'm all in a sweat.
Don't worry. Cotton resists perspiration.
It does? Are these outfits made of it, too?
Sure, and so are the barracks bags. Hey, you look tired again.
I am a little bit.
Then go on, get those tents up. You had another tough day. That's why Uncle Sam bought you 380 million yards of cotton duck last year. Just so you'd have a roof over your head. Come on, step on it. We can't wait for you. We gotta take off.
Boy, it's a great life to be a soldier. You roll along on tires reinforced with cotton cord. You're protected from sun and rain by a canvas top. You never have to walk. Never. Well, hardly ever. Where are we going?
Overseas.
What's the rush?
Just to complete your education. You wanted to know all about cotton and war, didn't you?
Well, I guess so.
Look around. Life rafts.
Cotton canvas?
Any comment?
No, only I hope those rafts stay good and dry this trip.
These tarps. Thousands of tarps all over the globe.
Cotton duck?
Yes. The precision work on all these plane motors is protected from bad weather and corroding salt by these tarps. And down in the hold, much of the cargo that's going to the troops is in cotton or burlap sacks.
Hey, look, pal, we're off.
Yeah, we're off.
Hooray!
Glad to see you so happy.
Oh, why shouldn't I be? For a few days, I'm going to forget all about cotton. Just smell the sea and air, enjoy myself. Lie around in the sun, look up into the sky, and...
What do you see?
Signal flags.
And they're made of cotton.
I'm surrounded by it everywhere, everywhere.
Sure you are. Life preservers. Mae West. They're all made of it.
You know, it's quite a relief to look at something that's just plain metal.
Ever heard of gun cotton?
Look, pal, will you let me relax just for a moment and admire the sunset?
Pretty, isn't it? Little pink cotton clouds. Do you mind a few general observations?
Go ahead.
You see, this is a war of great distances. Every ounce of weight we can save counts. Well, cotton is light, very light. It resists water, mildew, sunlight, and perspiration. Cotton is tough. It doesn't tear easily.
I believe that. I remember the obstacle course. My fatigue clothes stood up better under the strain than I did.
I hope by now we've got you tough enough for this.
Here, too, you got cotton?
That camouflage net overhead.
I don't care what it's made of as long as it hides us.
The insulation on the signal corps wire. The belt feeding the bullets into that machine gun.
This isn't the same plane, is it?
No, this is a transport for paratroopers.
I make a jump?
Sure, just wait your turn.
The chutes aren't cotton.
Some of them are. And all of them use cotton harness and are stitched with cotton thread.
I hope it's good thread.
Don't worry. They use the best, lightest, toughest cotton. The long staple kind. Before the war, it came from Egypt. Now we're planting it in New Mexico, Arizona, California.
Okay. Do I go now?
You take your orders from the man with the cigar. He's the jump master. Watch his face. We'll put a camera on his chest.
What are they throwing out after us?
Ammunition and supplies. You see those supply chutes? All cotton.
Where were the Japs?
A couple of miles from here. These men have been fighting the Japs for 3 weeks, day and night, without rest. Bandages are made of cotton. Stretchers are made of cotton. Mattresses, blankets.
Gee, I'm glad we got enough of it.
But I told you we're short. 2 billion yards short. Look at these men. Take a good look at their faces. Do you know what they want most now?
What?
A clean shirt and clean socks.
I can imagine.
Now you can because you've seen them. Remember, it's little things that make a man feel human. And often what's called morale is nothing more than clean, dry clothes. And morale wins battles. These are the new combat uniforms. They are better, more comfortable than the old ones. They protect a man from almost anything but bullets. And every piece of them is cotton. That's why we must have more of it.
Say, this is terrific. Look, Sarge, give me a furlough so I can go home and tell them all about cotton.
The best thing you can do is stay on your job just as they're staying on theirs back home. But since you caught on so quick, I'll make you a private first class now.
A stripe?
Uh-huh. Made of...
I know. Cotton.
These doughboys are in there fighting for you. They're on their way overseas, and they need cotton as much as they need steel and copper and chromium and oil and gasoline. They need it to fight. They need it to win. They need every piece of cotton we can supply.
Sometimes even the generals use it.
From enemy skies, our planes are planting a special kind of cotton field. With each small white puff, D-Day, Victory Day, grows nearer. On the fields of home, the cotton pickers of America are fighting a war. In the mills and factories of home, the cotton workers are fighting a war. And every man and woman who spins and weaves and cuts and sews, everyone whose hands touch cotton, is helping to make some part of this flag. This symbol of freedom.
So, I'm a big fan of films made during World War II, specifically for the home front, building morale, and for whatever industry or whatever agricultural group, cotton, wood, all these natural resources, trying to get people to not slack off at work. All these different factors. Really fascinating movement, and it's propaganda. It's really trying to get people to build a morale to support what was happening overseas. Very much I dig that. Let's see. I'm a little scattered today. Don't know why. It might be that I don't have enough coffee. You can certainly support us by buying us coffee at ko-fi.com/avgeeks. And also on Patreon. Patreon.com/avgeeks is a way to support us. So we can buy things like, I don't know. I'm playing with this filter automatic, Wi-Fi automatic watering pump kit to see if I can pump isopropyl alcohol as a drip to help with wet gate on one of the scanners. It might not work. The manufacturer makes one for $2,500. This one was, $40. And I hooked it up and it immediately started spraying alcohol everywhere. So maybe that's what I'm succumbing to, is all the alcohol that's in the air that wasn't properly vented. Anyways, let's see what we got. Yeah. Let's watch a NASA film. Earthspace, Our Environment. Enjoy.
Weather and climatic changes, atmospheric pollution and disturbances of the ozone layer, worldwide magnetic storms that disrupt radar and radio, telephone communications, and even cause power failures. All these may well be controlled by eruptions on the sun, which affect Earth's magnetism and create the auroras by means of a vast engine around the Earth, the magnetosphere. Because this magnetosphere can affect Earth in so many ways, understanding how it works might help us cope with climate and pollution variations, and even help us in planning the use of our food and energy resources. But how can we start to understand the magnetosphere? In 1600, William Gilbert told us the Earth was a great magnet extending into space. 10 years later, Galileo Galilei turned his telescope on the sun and recorded how its surface constantly changed. But then for 300 years, the sun and Earth pursued their courses, and no convincing theory was able to connect Galileo's solar changes with Gilbert's terrestrial magnetism. Until a solar theory in 1890 suggested that the sun throws out particles which travel to the Earth to be caught by its magnetism. In the 1950s, the sun's own magnetism, it was suggested, flowed into space to envelop the Earth and generate the auroras high in the terrestrial sky. Yet this was only speculation on how the sun might affect the Earth through an invisible magnetosphere. Only by actually getting measurements in space could the true facts be unearthed. In the late 20s, Goddard, the American, built the first practical rocket craft. The Russian Sputnik was the first space success.
2, 1, 0.
The American Explorer soon followed, carrying with it a Geiger counter. The signals produced by the counter enabled Dr. James Van Allen to confirm that he was recording something real but unexpected in space.
It repeatedly did the same thing in the same general range of altitude and latitude and longitude, and therefore it must be a true physical effect that we were observing.
This was the first discovery in space. The Van Allen radiation belts, particles invisible to the eye, which came perhaps from the sun, were trapped in the space around the Earth by the planet's magnetism. This was the first step in establishing a link between the sun and Earth through the magnetosphere.
And when the radiation belts were discovered, I was very keen on the idea that the fast particles from the sun would be able to fill these radiation belts, and that the stored particles we were seeing there were in part, or perhaps in major part, coming from the sun. And so the paper in which the word magnetosphere was coined was that there would be a region around the Earth where the Earth's magnetic field dominated the circumstances.
The first concept of the magnetosphere was that of a region where Earth held particles that were captured from the sun. But did these particles really come from the sun? To find out, instruments had to be fired further out into space to really discover if the erupting surface of the sun did throw out particles and magnetism all the way to the Earth. And from space, this answer came back. Streams of particles flowed from the sun, dragging out the sun's magnetism, a solar wind rushing into space. But Earth's magnetism in the magnetosphere deflected the solar wind around the Earth. So how then could the solar particles get in and be caught? Solving this space problem could be difficult.
You're going to have them penetrate to the atmosphere. And so one of the exciting things that have been done in the last few years was find that if we went clear above the Earth's poles, that plasma from the sun would directly come down into the atmosphere.
This was the breakthrough. Solar particles detected entering directly into the magnetosphere. While within the magnetosphere, further measurement showed what was also invisible to the eye. Seas of plasma particles around the Earth, and huge particle streams moving thousands of miles back from the tail, perhaps to directly ignite the brightest auroras. But what could drive the magnetosphere into these fast movements? Could the solar wind rushing past outside the magnetosphere supply the energy?
Well, if I knew the answer to the question of how energy was transferred from the solar wind to the magnetosphere, I wouldn't be sitting in front of this camera talking about it. I'd be in my office writing as hard and as fast as I could to demonstrate what I believe to the colleagues which are also investigating this problem. It is contentious.
One theory hinges on a magnetic connection. Magnetism from the sun connecting with and dragging back Earth's magnetism. This would work like a dynamo in space, transferring energy into the magnetosphere, where it is stored until suddenly released in a magnetic storm to disturb the Earth and create auroras. For such auroras appear to be created when stored energy is released in a violent eruption throughout the magnetosphere. But where can proof of this be found? One place is the Arctic, where auroras are seen almost every night. And scientists search for clues to show how the magnetosphere collects energy from the sun, stores it, and suddenly releases it to the Earth, creating auroras in a burst of energy equal to that of a large earthquake. So analysis today concentrates on finding how the magnetosphere works and, in particular, what triggers its energy releases. Could it be changes in the solar wind?
The solar wind does not flow steadily and regularly. It carries perturbations, shock waves. Even the magnetic field changes in direction and intensity. When this happens, an instability is triggered in which suddenly an explosion occurs in the tail, in which magnetic energy that has been accumulated during a certain time is suddenly converted into particle energy. And that typical solar wind particle that had been trapped in the tail now suddenly is accelerated toward the Earth.
So, changes on the sun, which change the solar wind, appear to trigger an energy-filled magnetosphere into a sudden spasm, creating a magnetic storm, the brightest auroras, and affecting the whole Earth environment.
But there are still many of the apparent effects of the aurora borealis and the magnetic storms that defy detailed explanation. So there's a great deal more to be learned in the ionosphere and in the upper atmosphere of the Earth.
So investigations continue. This is a computer simulation of the Earth and auroras from space, part of an experiment to measure exactly how magnetosphere energy creates them. And beyond this, there are active experiments.
You really want to try to actively perturb the magnetosphere, the ionosphere, and the atmospheric system in controlled ways so that you're actually doing a laboratory experiment. You know what the input is, and you can measure the response of the system. And when we get to that point, we'll be able to really probe the specific processes which couple these regions together.
In Canada, there is an active experiment underway in which radio signals, which disturb the magnetosphere, are received from the opposite hemisphere of the world, the Antarctic. The signals injected here arc through the magnetosphere to give a record of the changes that are happening there. The most active experiments will be done with man in space, on the space shuttle.
With the space shuttle, we get the opportunity to put man into the experiments. Given the new capability that the shuttle will have, we'll be able to conduct a brand new variety of experiments that we've never had the capability to do before. And the scientist will be able to interact with the medium surrounding the vehicle, will be able to probe the medium, perturb the medium, and measure the responses. And that's really the way you understand things.
So what is understood of Earthspace today? Laboratory simulations of a magnetic Earth and the solar wind streaming at it have been able to produce a visible representation of the magnetosphere. But the picture is blurred and out of scale. Only space measurements are valid in constructing a true diagram of the magnetosphere and its movements. Simplified images of this complex engine in Earthspace, where until recently there was thought to be only empty stillness. This is, however, a gauge of our present-day understanding and ability to predict how changes on the sun will, in some ways, affect the magnetosphere and Earth environment. So today, at forecast centers like this, the sun is kept under watch around the clock.
Activity in region 331.
What kind of activity you have?
The filament in 331 is active. It is shifting off band to the red. Flare. Beginning in 331. Start time 1958. Location north 13, east 28.
Dad, I've got a big flare. Could you give me some help?
Today, we know that the magnetosphere is a complex engine through which the sun causes enormous disturbances to the Earth's environment.
FAA, this is the Forecast Center in Boulder. I'd like to report a major solar flare in progress.
When we learn all the details of how the magnetosphere works, we will be able to predict its effects on the atmosphere and its influence on short and long-term weather patterns and on changes in the Earth's ozone layer. Then we would know what changes to expect in our environment when we see the sun shaken by a huge eruption. All this lies in the future, but many think the groundwork is now being laid.
In region 331.
Well, that's right. You probably will have some effects in a day or two.
East 28.
Oh, this is a big one. It's still on the increase.
Still rising.
There are some effects of magnetic storms that are controversial. The apparent effects on the weather. We find some fairly convincing evidence that if there is a very large magnetic storm, that there are worldwide effects at the jet stream level of the atmosphere, with low pressure centers that correspond to major storms over the Gulf of Alaska deepening in the first 2 or 3 or 4 days. But of course we know that the storms are associated with dumping of electrified particles from the magnetosphere into the Earth's atmosphere. We then take a look at what happens to the winds and to the temperatures of the atmosphere at about 35,000 feet above our heads. There seems to be no doubting the fact that there is a weather effect.
Beyond climatic changes, there is the effect on living organisms when the whole magnetosphere is disturbed during reversals of the Earth's magnetic polarity.
Now, at present, the magnetosphere exerts a vital shielding influence on the surface of the Earth. But during magnetic polarity reversals, the magnetosphere, for all practical purposes, disappears. That shielding is removed. A major solar flare occurring during a reversal in polarity of the magnetic field would produce ozone depletions of a large enough magnitude that it would almost certainly have serious effects on the biosphere, if you like, on living organisms on the surface of the Earth. I don't think this is a mechanism that we have to worry about too much. Although we are due for a polarity reversal in terms of the geologic past, the polarity has been stable now for nearly 1 million years, and that, from the past record, is about as long as it ever is stable.
So this is our world. Around it, Earthspace, the magnetosphere system through which the sun affects so much of our environment. A better understanding of Earthspace is a key to maintaining the harmony of our planet's future.
I guess I didn't mean to do it, but I ended up showing 3 U.S. government films. The first one was from the USDA. The second one was Army Signal Corps. And this last one, or the War Department. And this last one was NASA. So, exciting stuff with some great music. Sometimes that happens. I didn't plan it. I just was like, ooh, I want to see Cotton at War. Ooh. Oh, this is a NASA film. Oh, I'd love to watch this. Ooh. So, thanks for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. That String Sounds film was really great, especially the sitar, and the tabla. Join us again tomorrow for the last show of 2022. Yeah, it's been a long, wonderful year, and I'm happy that you guys have been there to share it with us. As always, please rewind, love each other, and we will see you tomorrow. Everybody take care.